Hello, thank you for tuning into video number 2. Kevin Zelaya here again. And in this video, we're going to build upon what we went over in video number 1. More specifically, how that meaningful story of my birth, how that impacted and played a role in my life, not only in early childhood, but also in who I've developed and become today. You see, I grew up in a world of two unique perspectives. On one hand, I was born and raised here in the United States, but on the other hand, I spent a significant portion of my upbringing in the Central American country of Honduras. Now, for many of you that don't know, Honduras, yes, number one, is commonly known as the murder capital of the world, but also is known as one of the poorest nations in all of Central America. So here I was, with a young, moldable mind, trying to make sense of the world in which we had all the modern luxuries of the United States and a world in which people were struggling just to get by, struggling for survival. My mom shares the story of one of the first experiences that I had going to Honduras. I was maybe like around 6 or 7, and she shares my observations essentially. In the United States, I was so used to the routine of, okay, we're getting ready for the first days of school. Here we are going to the mall, going shopping, getting all new fresh wardrobe, fresh shoes, all new fresh book bag, utensils, notebooks, everything. And so when I went to Honduras this time, I was observing the children going to school. And over there, they do mandate school uniforms as a way of leveling the playing field of family socioeconomic status. That way, all the children look more or less the same. But ultimately, it doesn't always work out that way. And she shares the story of how I asked her, Mom, why is it that here in Honduras, why do children enjoy going to school and walking around barefoot? I didn't understand. I didn't understand the concept of poverty as a child. That's an impossible task to try to have any parent teach poverty to a child. And so I thought that it was just their personal desire. That was their style, perhaps. And so she had to sit down and explain to me that, Kevin, not all children are blessed in the same ways that we are in the United States. Not all children have the luxury of being able to afford shoes. Not all parents have the luxury of being able to afford their child shoes, even if they wanted to. And so that was just a very difficult concept for me to wrap my head around, but it was so important and so invaluable that I had that experience early on. Later on, about 2 to 3 years after that, I was back in the United States, and I had, amassed a sizable amount of a toy collection. And like any given kid here in the States, you play with the toys for a certain amount of time, and I always took great care of mine, so my toys never really broke. But eventually you just kind of got bored with them and you started playing with your newer toys. And so the older toys just kind of sat in the back of the closet, not really getting used. Well, one summer, I knew that we were planning on going to Honduras, so I took it upon myself and I started amassing all the toys that I knew that I hadn't played with in a while, that I really didn't have any interest in. And I took those with me. Now, my grandma lives pretty well for herself in Honduras, but like any region, poverty is just around the corner. And so one day I asked my grandma to join me, and we walked down the road to what you could very clearly see was a much rougher part of town. And there was a little boy playing in a puddle. I believe he had a really dirty stuffed animal. He cared for it as his own. He held it close to him and he was playing with it joyfully. And I went up to him with a bag of my toys and I offered one to him. And what I got back, I'll never forget, because it was just a series of emotions that just unfurled and a series of reactions that some you could come to expect, but others, especially at the youthful age that I was, I really didn't come to expect. But I offer him the toy, and I get this look back. he was very uncertain. He was obviously interested, but he just didn't really know if this was a safe offer or not. So he reluctantly reaches out, and I place the toy in his hand, and I say, "It's yours." And his face just lights up. He's still trying to process and understand what that really means, but you can tell he's getting excited. He looks over at his sister, and she's also equally excited, and luckily I had plenty of toys available. I had actually collected Beanie Babies here in the United States, as was the fad at the time, and so I hand her a Beanie Baby, and she gets all excited, and they're running around the little area that they live in, and eventually a bunch of kids come out from the community, and they're all coming to see, what's going on, what's the excitement. And I sat there with my grandma watching, uh, and handed out toy after toy, and in my early mindset, I even, was like, oh, he would like a Power Ranger, and I was very selective in who I gave what. And it was, quite unique. But eventually I ran out of toys to give, and like always, there's always more people in need than what we may be able to give. And it was an experience that I'll never forget, that reminded me that there's always more. We need to do more. And we also need to grow in our ability to do and give more, because eventually there were more children in need than there were toys that I had to offer, and some of the parents grew resentful at that. Some parents grew a little bit angry at that. And I'm not here to blame them or anything. It's just one of those things that just always stuck with me, that there's always more good in the world that we can do. A couple of years later, I had gone back to the States. Again, that's where I went to school in the States and grew up. Even though I did spend a year going to school in Honduras, in elementary school, which was very unique. But after staying in the States for some time, again, I knew that I was going to go to Honduras for the summer. I tended to do that just to get a different experience. It was much more fun for me as a kid. I felt that you could always just go walk to your friend's house and go off on adventure, as opposed to here in the States. I always felt like I had to wait for my mom to come home and then drive me over to my friend's house. Well, I was preparing for this summer trip to Honduras, and I started collecting funds. I started, saving my allowance and doing things like that, just to amass a sizable amount of funds to do something with over there. I didn't really know what, but I wanted to do something, because I always experienced in Honduras being in the car with my parents, going through the city, and then seeing children my own age rushing up to the cars, trying to either sell you some fruit, sell you some gum, or even just trying to wash your windshield just so that you would give them a buck or two, anything. And that sticks with you as a child, because you realize that, why is it that I'm in the car and they're outside? I mean, is it luck of the draw? I don't know, and I still don't know. So I collected funds. I went to Honduras over the summer, and again, as my grandma tends to be my little sidekick in these do-good missions, I grab my grandma and she drives us into the city, and the very first stoplight we hit, a bunch of kids come running up to the car, exact same situation as I described. And I roll down the window and I ask them, "Are you hungry?" And they're like, yeah, we're hungry. And I said, okay, do you see this sign up ahead? Do you see that big billboard? It was a Burger King. I said, can you meet me there? Can you grab your friends, get as many friends as you can, and can you meet me there? And so they eagerly did. I mean, we were in a car and they beat us there. We get out of the car and they're there greeting us, excited. They don't really know what's about to go on, but they know that it's something abnormal from their day-to-day experience. And so I tell them that I'm here to buy them lunch. And so I invite them inside. They were actually the first ones to walk in, and I remember seeing the manager, who was behind the counter, walk around the counter and approach these young boys, and he proceeds to tell them that, nope, you can't be here. Sorry, paying customers only, you can't be here. So I stepped forward and I said, they're with me. He was clearly very confused by what was going on, but I proceeded to tell them that yes, they can eat here. I will be paying for their meal, and everything's okay. And it was amazing because, we grow up in the States. We know we're so accustomed to the modern little luxuries, such as a drive-through for food, that we know exactly what we want on it, what we don't want on it. We even know so much about it that we have it down to the number. I want the number 3 large with a Coke. And here these kids were. I tell them, you can order anything you want. And they're just looking up at the menu. Jaws drop. They don't know what to get. They've never been in that situation before where they had an option as to what they were to receive, what they were to eat, what they were to nourish themselves with. So every single one of them proceeded to just ask me, what are you getting? I said, I'm getting the chicken sandwich. I said, okay, I want the same thing, keeping it nice and simple. And so we all got the same meal because that was easy and that's what they knew. And so that was a really special event that I hold dear and near to my heart, and really I don't tend to share very often, not for any particular reason or another. But it was so rewarding, even at that young of an age, seeing these children be seen, seeing them be acknowledged, seeing them being stood up for, because the manager was more than willing and more than ready to kick them out. And then seeing these kids possibly get to be kids for the first time in their lives. Because after our meals, each and every one of them got to play joyfully on the playground. You see, when you're struggling for survival, concepts such as love, concepts such as play, concepts such as joy, happiness, pleasure, comfort, when you're struggling for survival, each and every one of those is a luxury that you can only dream of. And quite frankly, many of these children have lost sight of that dream, have lost sight of the knowledge that you even can dream. So I gotta tell you, that was one of the more truly rewarding experiences of my life. If you stay tuned to video number 3, you'll be emailed about that within the next 24 hours, given a link to watch that. We're gonna go one step further, going a step into where I'm at now, and going into presenting an opportunity for how we can all share, learn, and grow together. But for now, thank you so much for your willingness to learn, listen, engage, and again, experience a conversation of a different nature. For now, thank you.